Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Certified Firms webinar. It's 12 noon on the dot here at the IICRC headquarters in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Angelina Dixon. I'm the marketing supervisor for IICRC. I'm stepping in for Gavin today. He's out of town. We have a fabulous webinar covering the newly published S400 standard, which is the professional cleaning, maintenance, and restoration of the commercial built environment. And if you have any questions at all during the presentation, feel free to put them below in the Q&A, and we will answer them at the very end of the presentation. I'm going to pass the torch now to our standards director, Millie Washington. Take it away, Millie.
Thank you, Angelina. Good afternoon and welcome to everyone to the IICRC Certified Firms webinar on the new S400 standard. And before we start off with this webinar and the discussion about the standard itself, I just want to cover a couple of updates on our standards just to share informationally what's going on, what's coming down the pike so that you are aware and possibly able to participate as and when the opportunity arises. So just a quick note on some of our newer standards. Of course, the S400, which is what we're here to discuss today, 2025, very first edition of the standard. We are excited and proud to bring the standard to you. And of course, our speakers today, Perry Shimanoff and Todd Stoneking, will dive deep into the standard and provide an overview to all attendees today. In addition to the 400, we recently published the S520 2024 edition of the standard, also available through our web store as well as the IICRC standards subscription site. And then last but not least, the new fire standard, ANSI IICRC S700, also the very first edition 2025 standard for professional fire and smoke restoration. All of these standards are available through the IICRC web store and the subscription site. So if you're a subscriber, you already have access to everything that's been recently published. Just a quick note next on the standards that are currently in public review. We have the S410 draft standard on infection control during professional cleaning and maintenance of the commercial built environment. We also have the S900 standard for professional remediation of precursors, drug residues, and associated chemical waste. Both of these standards are currently in their second limited public review, which means that it's the substantive changes made to these standards since their first round of public review that are currently available for download, review, and commenting. And all of that is available through the IICRC standards website. We encourage you to please review these changes and submit any comments if you have. The public review for both S410 and S900 closes on March 2nd. So you still have a few days. Just a few standards that we are expecting to be published in 2025. The S300, which is the Professional Upholstery Cleaning Standard, the last edition of the standard, was published in the year 2000. So we are excited to be able to publish a revised ANSI accredited standard, an American National Standard, the S300. Hopefully this summer. And then in addition to that, the two standards that I already mentioned, the S410 and the S900, we expect to publish both of these standards sometime this summer. So 3 new standards coming up, all to be approved and published as American national standards. And then just a quick note on some of the other standards that are coming down, that are in draft form at this time, being developed, being revised. Some of them are already existing standards like the S100, the 220, and the 500. And so those are standards that are currently being revised. As you may know, all of our ANSI standards have a 5-year revision requirement. And so we are in the process of revising some standards and then developing other new standards. And that's a list of everything that we are currently working on, in addition to also the safety and health field guide for disaster restoration professionals. I'm not going to read the list, but I just wanted to share that. And there's information on each of these standards on the IICRC standards website, as well as information on any new standards that we might be accepting applications for. So in any way, if you would like to participate, the IICRC website is the way to do that. And that kind of concludes my little update on standards. And thank you for being patient, for letting me do that. And then next up, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today's webinar, Perry Shimanoff and Todd Stoneking. I'd like to share a little bit about both Perry and Todd with you. Perry Shimanoff founded Management and Communication Consultants, or MC Square, in 1979. Mr. Shimanoff previously worked as a senior consultant for a productivity management firm, systems engineer for a national data processing company, supervisor for methods improvement in one of the largest health insurance firms in the country, and served as a commissioned officer in the United States Marine Corps. Mr. Shimanoff received his master's certification training from the Cleaning Management Institute and is one of the 6 ISSA certified custodial trainers in the United States. Mr. Shimanoff is the current chair of the S400 consensus body. In addition, he also volunteers at Project We Hope, a San Mateo County homeless shelter where he provides custodial training for residents and staff. Todd Stoneking is a supervisor in facilities operations at the University of Utah, where he has worked for over 30 years. He oversees equipment maintenance and manages the specialty crews that deal with the long-term building maintenance on the campus. Todd is the current vice chair of the IICRC S400 consensus body and is a bronze member contributor with the IICRC, as well as a certified carpet care technician. Todd is a former president of Utah Collegiate Custodial Association. In addition, Todd has studied and taught the art of karate and kabuto for the last 36 years. He holds an 8th degree black belt and is senior chief instructor in Matsumura Seiyo Shorin Ryu Karate, Okinawan Shorin Ryu, holding the title of Kyoshi. So don't mess with Todd. And with that, I hand it over to Perry and Todd.
Thank you, Millie. That was very, very helpful. I joined IICRC in 2022, and initially I was just a member of the committee and eventually became the chair. And I'd like to introduce the consensus body members. I'm just going to do a little brief bio about each one. But one of the things I noticed is there's 10 of us. We have over 400 years of experience in the cleaning business, whether it's trainers, consultants, providers, customers. So it's a very impressive group. First on the picture is Lee Center. He's been in the cleaning and disaster cleanup business for the past 45 years. He recently has been appointed as an adjunct professor at Humber Polytechnic Institute. He's also a technical specialist for the Toronto Moisture Testing and Instruments Corporation. He's the CEO of Fresh and Clean, which is a specialty cleaning company in Toronto, Canada. Lee was the standards vice chair for IICRC for 9 years and is now the chairperson of the IICRC Safety and Health Field Guides, which Millie mentioned in one of the previous slides. Lee teaches several different courses for organizations like IICRC, CFCRA, ISSA, and the Restoration Sciences Academy. Next is Mike Perkins. Mike is currently the custodial manager at Morongo Unified School District. And previously, he was the custodial manager at Poway Unified, where he oversaw 150 custodians. He's the CEO of Clean Right Building Maintenance for the past 17 years. And Mike has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Sciences from the University of Utah. Dane Gregory is currently an approved IICRC instructor for carpet, both residential and commercial, tile and stone, floor care and upholstery. He's a former member and chairman of the IICRC Board of Directors. The fourth picture is Mike Warner, who was the education manager for ISSA's Cleaning Management Institute from 2016 to 2020. He's been involved in development and delivery of education, training, and certification programs throughout North America and other countries. He's a past member of the ISSA Board of Directors and has also served as the division leader of IICRC. One comment about Mark, he has a special ability to meet with celebrities. A few years ago, he met with Eric Estrada at the Burbank Airport while I was doing all the work. I haven't forgotten that. Next slide, please, Millie. Bill Griffin, 45 years of experience as a cleaner, consultant, trainer, and expert witness. He's authored several books. In fact, the first cleaning book I ever purchased was authored by Bill Griffin, and he's written more than 400 articles. He's a certified master custodial trainer for both ISSA and IIC. And a personal note, he recently acquired a boat for recreational use. And the first time he took it out, he crashed into a pier, so nobody's gone on boat rides with him recently. Salvador Rodriguez is currently the custodial services manager at Washington State University, Vancouver. He's also the founder of Resplendent Consulting Services, where he conducts ISSA classes and develops training programs. Prior to Washington State, he was the operations manager at San Joaquin Delta College, and he began his impressive career at Manteca Unified. And since I like to share personal things, he also grows the sweetest seed-free oranges in the West. Roger McFadden, he is our senior scientist and an innovative leader in green chemistry and sustainable product design. He is also a former U.S. Marine, having served in the late 60s and 70s. Rich Duchesher recently retired as the custodial manager at Santa Clara Unified School District, and previously he was the custodial manager at Chabot Las Positas Community College District. Prior to that, he was at the University of Southern California, and he began his managerial career in Talent, Oregon. There are two other pictures that have not been displayed, and I'd like to briefly highlight them, and that's for Millie Washington and Cheryl Smith. They have been the driving forces behind the successful development of the S400 standard. Their unparalleled expertise, unwavering patience, and insightful guidance have been invaluable throughout the process. Without their dedication and leadership, we might still be navigating the complexities of this standard. Their contributions have not only shaped the S400, but also set a benchmark for excellence in the field. We extend our deepest gratitude to both of them for their exceptional vision, commitment, and leadership. So thank you, Millie. Next slide. So the objectives of the S400. Objective 1 is to focus on the commercial built environment and define frequencies, objectives, results, principles, and practices to clean, maintain, and restore the built environment. And secondly, to define criteria for evaluating commercial facility characteristics and condition, and for establishing objectives for preventing soil from entering the building, appearance retention, soil removal, and indoor environmental quality. So Millie, if you go to the next slide, this is the table of contents. There are 7 sections in the standard. I'm going to review sections 1 and 2, and then Todd's going to discuss sections 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to come back and take a look at 6 and 7, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So Millie, if you will go to the next slide. Section 1, Principles of Cleaning. There's actually 6 different steps to this. First is what we call implementation of soil reduction systems. For example, walk-off mats, making sure sidewalks and parking lots are clean, having a system to remove spills quickly. Dr. Michael Berry said something, the key to cleaning is not to have to do it. And so implementation of soil reduction systems is one of those approaches. Second step is called identify the soil. In other words, that's a pre-inspection process. What is it we're trying to remove from the building? Is it dirt? Is it grease? Is it dander? Is it poor air? Whatever. Third step is called remove the soil or pickup. And this should be done so you don't injure yourself and you do not damage a system or a surface. Step 4 is called contain the soil. That's called packaging. Step 5 is to take the disposal and get it out of the building, put it in a dumpster, compactor, composter, down a drain if it's appropriate. And step 6 is inspect the work, post-inspection, and that will cover more when we get to section 6. So that's an overview of section 1, principles of cleaning. So Millie, if you'll go to the next slide. The second slide, or the second section, is what we call administrative procedures and project documentation. And you notice on the slide there are 4 bullets. So cleaning service requirements are what are called SOPs, standard operating procedures. And although we do not provide them, it is highly important that every organization, whether it's internal or building service contract, have SOPs in place. Communication, we discuss different ways to do that, written, verbal, and electronic. Continuity of operations. What happens if there's a turnover in staffing or an additional service is requested by the customer, or there's a supply chain issue, which we experienced during COVID, or there's an emergency? Those are all factors that are going to affect the performance of the cleaning technicians. And finally, documentation. Documentation for cleaning, and I'm going to read this right from the standard, shall include federal, state, local, and provincial laws, and also requiring insurance, workplace health and safety regulations, etc. So that's an overview of section 2. By the way, as an expert witness, that documentation is so important. Every lawsuit I've been involved with, part of the issue has been the inadequate documentation of what has been done. So Todd, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, let's go to the next slide with safety and health. The goal of this document was not to be a safety and health manual. Okay, I'm going to start with that right off. But as in any job, there is safety and health measures that need to be followed. And what we want is the cleaning operations refer back to the regulations for the country or the state or wherever it is you live. That way you get the correct laws and you're following those laws. As all of you know, the word shall is regulatory, which means it is required under law. And because regulations can change from state to state or even country to country, it is important that those cleaning operations know those laws, understand those laws, and follow those laws. And a lot of that's going to be put back on the operators to make sure they know that, because there's no way we could cover every law that's out there in this book. Now, if you're in the US, as you all know, there's a lot of required regulations by OSHA, and they don't allow ignorance to the law as an excuse. They just love to give you fines. So it's very important that you know these laws. Now, one thing I thought I'd point out that me and Perry did discuss is look at this person cleaning. Wearing sandals on the job. Not sure if that's gloves or that's their skin, because I couldn't tell if it was a sweater, but we thought it was kind of funny. Remind you, there is safety and health things involved here. If we can go on to the next slide now. So section 4 is really about the cleaning process and probably the biggest section in this standard. Basically, cleaning process is the removal of unwanted substances from the built environment, surface, or material. What we're really looking for in this manual is outcomes. Okay, so as we start with, we have initial cleanings, preventive cleanings, routine and our daily cleanings, the interim or periodic cleanings, restorative cleaning, and project cleaning. Now, I'm not going to get into super amount of detail on each of these because some of these are just very obvious as what it is. But your preventive cleaning is exactly what it sounds like. Well, let's start with initial cleaning, okay? Initial cleaning is what you're going to do when you first take over a project, a new building, to get it up to where it needs to be in order to do the day-to-day cleaning. Okay, the preventive cleaning, which is probably one of the biggest ones in my opinion that you need to do, is make sure you have things out like entrance mats. Make sure that you're sweeping outside the entrances so you're stopping the dirt from coming into the building. Routine daily cleaning. Sounds like what it is, okay? It's the stuff you do every day. And that could be anywhere from vacuuming, picking up trash, to mopping floors, running scrubbers. So just the kind of things to be thinking about. And generally that's going to be set up on a routine schedule, and that'll be part of your SOP. Interim or periodic cleaning. So I like to call this the stuff you do once in a while, so you don't have to do the hard work later. And that's going to include things like doing, what's a good word for it? Polishing of floors, interim like encapsulating carpets, deep cleaning in areas where you've got buildup that you're just not getting off in the daily routine. And then we move into restorative. And this is the one we all hate doing because restorative cleaning is very time and costly, I should say. Okay, because if you got to strip a floor down, it's a lot harder than just polishing it. So that's the basic things on those. Finally, we've got, of course, project cleaning. And project cleaning, we really call that the stuff you have to do when there's been an emergency. Maybe a pipe's broken, you have to drain back up. Now, our goal with this is not really to tell you the exact method you need to use to obtain these goals, although we kind of expect you to use industry accepted methods. And those are what you're going to want to employ under most circumstances. But the reason I mentioned this, because let's say you're cleaning a floor, you could put 20 people in there with rags and have them wipe the floor from one end to the other. Probably not going to be most cost effective as having somebody run a mop or run a scrubber on that floor. But as long as you met the goal of the standard, then that would be acceptable. But we really want you to think of things that are going to be most cost effective and use those methods. Let's go on to section 5. So this section is about making sure you have the proper equipment and tools, supplies to do the job. We threw in a few pictures here. Okay, there's a closet there on the left side of your screen, which is just a closet setup. They make sure they have the supplies they need. As you know, there's toilet paper, paper towels, and you can even see a little bit of equipment in there. This middle slide is absolutely one of my favorite. This was a picture that Perry actually took at one of the places that he's done stuff with. And note how they have everything separated. So you've got the carts, they're set up properly, although it's hard to tell in the picture. But they're also separated to avoid cross-contamination. So if you're using them in various areas, you don't get them and share, bacteria and things like that. Much better setup than just taking your Rubbermaid and, throwing your toilet paper and paper towels inside of it and going out and working. The last slide, or the last picture on this slide, is just some various equipment. And again, that's the stuff you're going to need to do your job. Okay, and that's going to vary from project to project and job to job. And that's something that has to be decided, obviously, by the operators of the organization as to what is the proper equipment. So as I was mentioning, having a Rubbermaid with things just thrown in is most likely not what we want, but something very well organized. And so we look very professional when we're out there. Organized closets, well-maintained closets, and equipment, that's what we need so you can accomplish your job. Where I work here at the university, some years ago, our director, first thing he would check anytime he inspected a building was he'd go into the custodial closets. And he could almost immediately tell what type of work that custodian did by the look of his closet. So just something to think about there. I would encourage everybody at the end of the document, there's a little bit of a white paper on custodial closets, which we felt were really important, and Perry will cover a little more on that in a minute. But final thing I just want to kind of cover in this section is, in addition to making sure you have the proper equipment, tools, materials, and supplies, is training. Okay, need to make sure that employees are trained well and they know how to use that equipment, know how to use those supplies. You know, we don't want to be using a descaler or bathroom acid to clean marble. Had it done, don't want it to happen again. And, you know, it's very disastrous when they do damage to surfaces. So it's very important that all your employees know how to use the equipment, tools, and the materials. All right, I'm going to let Perry take back over for the next section.
Before you move Millie, if you can go back to that slide, I just wanted to make 2 comments. Cleaning starts in the custodial closet, and I agree with Todd. When I do cleaning audits, that's the first place I go. The second cleanest location is the custodial cart, and that's what our cleaning technicians are using to do their job, and it sends a message. If the carts look like the ones in the center picture, they are perceived as being very professional. Todd may show you a couple pictures later that sends the exact wrong message about folks. So now, Millie, maybe the next slide. You know, when we talk about why we clean, most folks can come up with 2 or 3 reasons. Oh, we clean for health, we clean for appearance, we clean for safety. There's a lot more to it than that. We clean so our customers have a safe, healthy place to do their job. We clean to make sure we don't violate any laws. We clean so that surfaces last longer. We clean because it's a very important job. And so Section 6 is focusing on quality assurance and quality control, which is a fancy way of saying, are we meeting our standard of care? So what is quality assurance? That validates that the completed work meets the expected outcome, the scope of work, and stakeholder expectations. That's quality assurance, or QA. QC, quality control, is the process we use to monitor quality assurance. And there's many, many ways to do it. There's visual. We can do things with touch. We have equipment. We can ask custodians to self-report. We can inspect. We can use an outside agency. Benchmarking is where we can compare our service and efficiency to other similar organizations in our standard. And it's a great way to evaluate the effectiveness of our cleaning program. And finally, how do we correct cleaning deficiencies that we've identified? There's many ways to do it. Todd mentioned the importance of training. In fact, besides the custodial closet and the custodial cart, to me, the next important area in an organization is the training room itself. Where does training get conducted? So some opportunities to correct cleaning deficiencies and restore the standard of care. We might have to adjust our frequencies. We might have to get different equipment. We might have to review training. So this entire section focuses on that. So Millie, if you'll go to the next section. Next slide. Section 7, we call it the legal stuff. And basically there's what we call limitations, complexities, complications, and conflicts. And I will admit I had no idea what this was 3 years ago. Okay. The only examples I had were between my wife and myself, and so I told her I wouldn't feature her today. Limitations, those are restrictions or constraints that may arise when you're doing your job. Complexities, there may be multiple factors, there may be nuances, management may be making some changes. Complications are where there are additional problems or difficulties. Let's say the customer is providing the chemicals and they have a supply chain issue. That is a complication. And finally, probably the most common is conflicts, and that's disagreements between ideas or people. And that can happen. All 4 of these, when they happen, should be documented when they take place. So there's not a next slide, but I wanted to cover one other thing in our standard. We've put together an appendix where we've identified we've provided 13 examples of different types of documents that support the 7 sections. And I'm just going to very briefly tell you what they are. It's a phenomenal resource. Our first appendix is a written hazard communication program, which every organization, whether you're in-house or BSC, must have. The second appendix is a sample of a commercial cleaning checklist, and that's a way of doing quality auditing and quality assurance and control. We have an appendix that has the Georgia School Administrators Restroom Checklist. So if you work in an environment, i.e. in a K-12 environment, community college, private school, charter schools, it is a phenomenal document to really enhance restrooms, and most of it is focused on our customers. We have an appendix where we explain the pH scale, the power of hydrogen, what are acids and what are alkalines. We have an appendix where we identify common cleaning agents ranging from water to abrasive cleaners. We have another appendix talking about chemical mixing and dilution. If the dilution control machine breaks and the custodian or cleaning technician has to dilute, how do you go about and do that safely? We have an appendix on how to do a return on investment. We see there's now some robotic vacuum machines. Is that a worthwhile investment? This gives you a guideline on how to conduct a return on investment so you can quantify it in terms of dollars and labor hours. We have an appendix on waste management. And again, the goal is to reduce the amount of waste. We have an appendix on the Internet of Things, which I will get to in a couple minutes. We have an appendix on the custodial closet. It's a 6-page article written by Todd and Mark Warner that focuses on how important the closet is and how to set it up and why it's vital to the cleaning process. We have an appendix on the OSHA fact sheet for bloodborne pathogen. We have an appendix on the hierarchy of controls. That's a fancy way of talking about personal protective equipment. And our final appendix has a risk assessment form in it. So, before we go to the next slide, the whole purpose of this standard, it serves as the fundamental standard of care for cleaning, and it's applicable across many of the multiple ANSI IICRC standards that Millie showed in one of the prior slides. So, Millie, if you go to the next slide, I think actually it's Todd's going to talk. Oh, yeah, Todd, it's your turn again.
Oh, yeah, some reasons for standards. This is the reason we really do need them. Okay. Every one of these pictures were in a building that somebody was not doing what they're supposed to be. Okay.
But not at the University of Utah, right?
Right. Yeah, we'll say that. That one picture on the left, the building was actually, people were moving out, but people were still housed and they just didn't get it cleaned. The other two, I can't give any excuses because both buildings were in use. And that. Anyhow, there's a lot of organizations out there that do inadequate cleaning. This is one of the goals of this document, is to help them to do it properly. Okay.
Todd, I just want to share something real quickly. I did some work for the United States Postal Service, and I went to their San Francisco distribution center. They have 16 sets of restrooms, both male and female. And one of the issues is they weren't using the male restrooms. And that picture is very similar to what they had in there. Most of the postal employees said they actually went next door to restaurants to use the restrooms. No excuse for it. And so I just wanted to mention that is one of the biggest complaints in the restrooms is lack of cleanliness or lack of supplies. So Todd, sorry for that injection, but I had to get that out of my system.
No, you hit it right on the head. There's nothing I hate worse than going into a facility. It looks like this. And, being cleaning for a living and dealing with that, every building I walk into, that is what I absolutely see. If I go to a restroom or go to a restaurant and have to use the restroom, I may never return to that restaurant again based on what I see.
Well, I carry around an ultraviolet light in my fanny pack. So, you can see what extremes I go to as well. But you look at places like Costco and Nordstrom's, you don't find dirty restrooms. They recognize customers will leave if the place is not immaculate, basically. I've had a chance to visit a lot of the casinos in California. They have full-time attendants in the restrooms. They don't want you playing someplace else. I mean, it's just vital. So I think it's a phenomenal picture and it sends a very powerful message.
And I totally agree with that. I mean, visually what you see is what you want to see. And if it's dirty, you don't want to be there. All right, let's go on to the next slide. And so really kind of talking about the reasons for standards, although Perry added a lot more than what's here, but we really want those clean facilities that meet the needs of our user, whether that's students or whether that's, employees or visitors to our place. There's actually been research done that for students, they actually do a better job in a clean environment and will get better grades. It was kind of interesting when I read that some years ago, because you wouldn't think that based on what you see around a college as they're, doing their classes and then they have to drop everything and they miss the trash can. But cleaner facilities do make a difference. The big three, of course, we usually clean for health, probably the biggest one. We clean for the appearance, which is very important. And one of my big ones is we clean to preserve that asset because, like everybody else, money is tight. If you clean your carpets, vacuum them regularly, they last longer.
Yeah, I think, Todd, the other major one is safety.
Yes,
because we're putting down products on surfaces, it's important that we set up proper safety barricades, safety signs so that nobody gets injured. And it's a sad state of affairs, but all 6 of my expert witness cases have been involved in slip and falls from that. By the way, that's a classroom at University of Utah, right?
it is. It's a couple years old. That classroom's probably been remodeled and now has a whiteboard in there, but instead of a chalkboard. But other than that, I bet you it still has that exact same furniture.
And this reason for standards, just a couple other comments, because cleaning technicians recognize that once a facility gets clean, it's easier to keep it clean. They get better cooperation from customers. It doesn't take as much effort. Again, I just like to point out those things that, there's about 20 different reasons why we clean. And of course, those are the most important. And of course, health, 10 years ago, we didn't think about it. But after COVID, health became, after COVID, they said to custodians, you're first responders. I'm not going to use any profanity. We've always been first responders ever since we've been involved in cleaning. So I remind custodians and cleaning technicians how important their job is. So sorry for that interjection, but as the chair, I get to do that.
And it was a perfect interjection
Okay.
because you covered stuff that I didn't have to that way.
Okay.
All right, I believe we're ready to go on to the next slide.
So I think it's my turn again. So what are some future trends we're going to experience in cleaning? And I encourage everybody that's interested in cleaning, whether you're a provider, building service contractor, cleaning technician, go to the shows, particularly ISSA's annual show in Las Vegas in November. If you want to know what's going on in the cleaning industry, this is the place to go. Robotics. And I'm not talking about, what is it called? The Roomba. We're now seeing very sophisticated equipment. It's equipment that we're going to add to our inventory to help us do our jobs more safely and more productively. I believe the name of this robot is Rosie, right, Todd? Isn't that
That is Rosie, yes.
Okay.
From the Jetsons.
They actually call them cobots. And I know Bill Griffin last year went to Amsterdam for the ISSA International Show. It was the #1 draw of more than 10,000 people is the cobots. That's not going to put anybody out of work. It's just going to be another piece of equipment that we can use. And they're getting very sophisticated. IoT is an acronym for Internet of Things. That robot has a device in it that it'll alert Todd when it's done doing its cleaning, or it might need additional chemicals, or the recovery tank has to be emptied. And we're seeing more and more of that in all the equipment and materials that we're using. Facebook's corporate headquarters, their trash cans now alert the custodian when they need to be emptied. So we're starting to see the introduction of IoT into our field. Safer chemicals, and courtesy of Roger McFadden, who now has gotten his 5th award from EPA for being the top safe chemical scientist in the country. We don't want the chemicals damaging surfaces. We certainly don't want the chemicals affecting our cleaning technicians, and we want things that are going to do a good job. Better building designs. It's sad our buildings aren't designed to remain clean outside of clean rooms. So we're seeing more of that. We're going to see new cleaning technologies, and again, new equipment, materials, and supplies. We're going to we're going to see things like engineered water. That's where water is our oldest cleaner. And now we have ways of enhancing it by adding ozone to it so it cleans, deodorizes, and sanitizes and reverts back to water. So when you think about some of the chemicals we use, they end up in a drain or outside in the environment. Using engineered water, we're just returning water back. So that's just a recap of some of the future trends that we anticipate. And again, I encourage folks, go to the IICRC website, download or purchase these ANSI publications. These are the most current and knowledgeable folks on how to do stuff. So on that, I think we turn it back over to Millie or to our host.
All right, guys, this is an opportunity for questions. I had to take a little break after the picture with the dirty urinal, but I'm back now. So if you guys have any questions, you can put them down below in the Q&A. I know there was some concern with the screens. It's showing the presenter view. I don't know if we had worked that out. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, just drop it in the Q&A and we'll answer them right now. Just any questions at all for Perry or Todd about the S400? I know last month we did the S700, and now I got the S400. Both of them are very exciting and newly published. Oh, we got one question. I got one question for you, Perry. So where were the jokes? I came for the jokes.
So what is the difference between a vacuum cleaner and a Harley-Davidson motorcycle?
Here we go.
The difference is the size of the dirt bag. I think that's pretty good. All right, one more. What did the custodian say when he stepped out of his custodial closet? Supplies. Oh, that one didn't go too well. One more. Why don't you confide with a vacuum? It's full of dirt. All right. If whoever came for the jokes, text me or send me an email. I'll send you a couple.
Okay. Well, if no one else has any more questions or requests for jokes or maybe songs, then Millie, do you have anything to add? Anything else?
No, just a big thank you to Perry and Todd and to everyone attending today. It was very informative, and we appreciate the time to do this today. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. And I always like to end every webinar and training session with keep it clean.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next time. We have a webinar every third Thursday of every month, so stay tuned for March. Should have a good webinar then as well. Have a great day, and we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.